Today, the property listing pandemic. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to the latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Today I'm joined again by Edwin Almeida. Hi Edwin.
G'day Martin. Look, before we go on, I just want to ask you a simple question. Have you sanitised yet?
Oh yeah, I'm fully sanitised, fully ready to go. And of course, the old internet sort of helps, doesn't it?
Well, I know, look, there's a lot of bugs and viruses that come through the internet, so I can't be too careful. But by the way, how do you like the new outfit the real estate agents are going to be wearing at the open house inspections?
Yeah, clearly, it certainly suits you.
Well, you know, the more I can be incognito, the less abuse I get out there on the streets.
But you make an important point, right? Because, of course, open houses, by definition, are a lot of people who you don't know coming into a confined space, walking around the same area, and essentially coughing over each other, etc.
Coughing over each other within close proximity. And, look, it does endanger the person, the agent. There are obviously two actors to the transaction. One is the agent, and the other one, of course, is the person. Is the person in the? I forgot to wear my gloves. That's it. I'm contaminated. Damn it. Hold on. Let me have a sip of my coffee. That way I won't be contaminated. So as I was saying, like, you've got two actors, the real estate agent on the one side, and you've got the tenant or the occupant of the property, maybe the vendor or the tenant on the other side. And both of them need to be taken care of. And there are certain things that need to happen. I mean, you don't have to go to all this extreme, but it stresses a point. This is a real problem. You don't see the bug. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that you don't have to take particular care to protect the tenant or the occupant of the property. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that owners of real estate agencies doesn't mean that just because they don't see the danger doesn't mean that they're placing their workers in a very toxic environment.
Right, and I guess that means that there is some liability vis-a-vis the agency to those individual agents. And I guess also the other question I have is, it's not really possible, is it, to buy a property without a visual inspection?
Well, no. Look, albeit there have been a lot of scenarios that I've been involved in where people have bought property. You can buy property by way of the buyer's agent. People acting on your behalf. But at the same time, there's still that physical visual inspection of the property. Then you've got the pest and building inspectors that come in as well. And that in itself is a little bit alarming because you don't know where they've been crawling and poking their sticks in. Then you've also got the valuers as well. So the agent has a lot of contact with a lot of actors along the way in the sales, during the sales and settlement process. So I guess today's topic, I just want to share a few things that I've come up with. Look, over the years, I've used them over the years, regardless of the fact that we're now in this pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic situation. But I've used these particular tips in order to prevent things from going wrong. And perhaps we can go one at a time if you like.
Yeah, okay, no, that's good. Let's go through the list and let's learn from you, Edwin, because you've been right at the front line for a long time.
So, look, the first one I'll start with the best one that I've come up with over the years, and I've used it many a times. I actually use this as being a bit of a prankster. I used it on my sisters and my family, and that is the old glad wrap in the across the toilet bowl scenario. Okay, so all sorts of things conjure up, and I did get a belting from my old man. But anyway, so But taking the serious side of it, what I do is I actually glad wrap the toilet seat to the bowl, and that prevents people from using the toilet when they come to the open for inspections. Again, I've done it not only just more so now, but also in the past. It stops people from using it. I also, in a lot of places, I will remove the toilet paper from the toilet paper holder, and often the case is I will also get rid of the towels in the bathroom. Now these are what I would call hotspots for germs, particularly now for them to breed. Because again, we don't know who's got what and so forth. So you don't want to basically create that environment where it's a welcoming environment for people to use, because you don't really want them to use the toilet facilities in the properties. Go to McDonald's or go to to Hungry Jack's down the road if you like. But this has become really, really serious based on the ways and methods that this virus can be transacted. It just breeds. Towels are a breeding ground. Even when you've got a cold or a flu at home, and people use the same towel in the bathroom, like the hand towel, you're using that over and over again. I mean, of course, that the flu or the cold is going to spread throughout the whole household. So that's just one of them. So I know it may sound a little bit crass or alarming, but hey, this is what you've got to do.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I never thought of it. Honestly, I've never thought of it until now, but you're making a really interesting point. And I wonder how many agents, when they run open house, go through that same routine.
Not a lot. And look, and I also say this also stops the real estate agents themselves from using the toilets. I've heard stories in I can tell you one in WA where a real estate agent got caught on CCTV actually watching porn on the lounge and doing all sorts of things whilst he was on the lounge. Needless to say that the office that the agent worked for at that particular time had to buy the vendors a whole new lounge set. So that stuff happens. You don't know, and this is where people are now going to be concerned and are becoming more and more concerned with regard to open homes. So to counteract a lot of these things, I say to both the tenant and the vendor to make a reasonable request of the agents, and that is have 2 agents present at the open for inspection. Now, I'm going to get a lot of stick for this because a lot of agencies only use 1 agent, particularly in the from a tenancy side of things, from the property management side of things, and it's short and swift and in and out within 15 minutes. Well, you know what? We've got to change the model. We've got to change the way that we service the clients and the way that we look after tenants, particularly the tenants that get, that are seem to be always on the wrong side of the, holding the wrong end of the stick. So we need to protect the tenants. So what I say is, the tenant has the right to make a reasonable request and request for the agency to have 2 people present. Secondly, stretch the open times so that you don't get crowds running through the property all at once, because this thing spreads through confined spaces. And so you need that more of a controlled open house as opposed to having 10, 15, 20 groups of people trampling through the house. So you can control this. I've been involved on the other side of the fence where the properties that I've occupied have been, I've had open for inspections as well. So in that case, they're the requests that I make, and they are reasonable requests. They cannot say no. They can't say no, particularly now. If they want to take you to the tribunal, they want to do all sorts of things, go all the way, because the tribunal member will just laugh the agents out of the tribunal, because that is a reasonable and sensible request.
Okay, very interesting, and it sounds perfectly sensible to me. But of course, it changes the economics, I guess, of of the agency once again, and puts more work in their court. But so be it.
But then again, ScoMo is keeping the borders open, and for what reason? For the dollar? What's a life worth? What's your health worth? A lot of people don't understand, Martin. And my insight is in that the inside information that I get from China are from very senior doctors in very big hospitals in a couple of the major cities, friends and relatives that I often communicate with. We communicate with on a daily basis, and as people may say, oh yeah, but the mortality rate's only very low. But the thing is, it's the after effects of this virus, the after effects, the ongoing effects that people are having moving forward. That's even scarier, and we won't go into those details. But we've got to look after people's health and lives.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I don't know whether you saw, but in the Lancet there was an article just recently published, basically on Chinese research that said that people remained infectious for 27 days on average post having been infected, which is a lot longer than people were assuming. So that's another factor to bear in mind in terms of trying to navigate this whole complexity.
Well, that's great. One of my followers on Twitter just sent me a message, and he said, the owner of a particular office sent his wife, who's a property manager, to do an open house inspection. What they weren't aware of was that the particular tenant hadn't advised them that they were in self-isolation because they do have the coronavirus. So this is what we're sending agents into. So into this, it's a war zone out there. Look, this is likened onto many films that we may have watched, that a lot of our followers may have watched, where you basically you're going into the trenches, all a group of you as mates, and you don't know who's going to come out of it unscathed or healthy, and who's not going to come out of this. This is deadly serious, and people need to take it a lot more seriously, and the politicians need to take it a lot more seriously than what they have been. I say.
Well, it's interesting. Of course, they've announced that the Grand Prix in Melbourne won't take any attendees now. So whether they're going to run the race or not is a different question. There are cancellations of sporting events left, right, and centre. So slowly but surely, people are waking up to the fact that this is real and serious.
Tip number 2, people. So this is my bottle of sanitizer, Martin. So what I do is I mix 2 parts methylated spirits, 1 part water, and I also add a certain amount of eucalyptus oil. Give it a good, shake, and I use it as a spray. So as a top of disinfectant. So when I do an open house, I will spray that on the doorknobs. I will spray that around the corridors, and I will spray it on particularly where people have walked, the most traversed areas, and also around the bathroom. Now, for yourself as a tenant or as an owner occupier, I believe you should have that as well, and sanitize the areas that people have touched before you go and touch it. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is request that the agent has everybody remove their shoes. I think it's easier to keep places tidier when people have removed their shoes, as opposed to bringing in all sorts of things from the outside anyway. And it's easier to clean up after somebody, people walked in with no shoes, as opposed to walking in with all sorts of stuff on their shoes. And again, that's where you clean up as a tenant or as an owner occupier. You would want to clean up after every inspection anyway. So whilst the agent, it's obviously another request that you can make, and it's within your right to make of the agent, and it also adds a freshness to the properties. Open all the windows and blinds. Air the place out as much as possible. A lot of this virus becomes more contagious or floats in the air a lot more when it's in confined areas as opposed to when it's airy. One of the reasons why hospitals and also any medical facilities or any other doctor surgeries and the like sometimes become breeding grounds is because the amount of people in there and you've got an air conditioning ventilating, which is just recirculating a lot of the air. Look, I'm not a medical doctor or anything, but this is just practical things that you should be doing to assist and help you in your lifestyle as well. From an agent's perspective, what I do with my smart devices and as I get people to type their details onto the onto the iPad is I actually put Glad Wrap on. I cover the keyboard with Glad Wrap. So after the open house, just get rid of the Glad Wrap and throw it in the bin. And of course, we're as agents, and salespeople and the like, we're so accustomed and used to shaking people's hands. Now we've got to stop shaking people's hands, and we've got to also keep our distance, which is going to become harder and harder, as you said, Martin. But the most important thing that I feel that agents that are going to be servicing their clients a lot better and looking after the tenants a lot better are going to be the ones that promote the dual agent open homes, where they can control the people that come in and out of the property, not to have 15, 20 groups of people tramp through the property within a 15-minute period, as a lot of them, the majority of them do. Yes, it's going to be an economic burden to a lot of offices, but hey, that's the price that we're going to pay as an industry in order to look after our clients, both tenants, vendors, and potential buyers. So look, there's simple tips. I hope people can use them. Look, as I said, anything. It's not the end of the things that are due.
The broader question I got is, if in fact the whole process of open house and listings is essentially going to get more and more complicated now, we're going to see less listings, aren't we? Go ahead.
Look, that's a $64,000 question, or in this case, let's call it the $64 million question, because the hedonic daily index has gone up through the roof and it continues to rise. So, we've gone from the tens of thousands into the millions. Look, what I've seen, what I've noted, particularly this week, we've almost had 1,000 listings drop in the Sydney onto the Sydney market in just a week, which is something in a way unprecedented. We did drop down to 13,175, and within 5 weeks we're now tipping the 17,000 mark. As I said, the 17,000 mark is going to be my marker for when it becomes a buyer's market as opposed to a vendor's market. And as you and I've discussed, this is happening. These changes are happening with relatively low listings in comparison to previous years. So if we go further than 17,000 and the sentiment in the market has changed with low listing numbers, it's only going to get worse. So I'm hearing stories that there are a lot of agencies are going to be being inundated with calls from people wanting to sell. We'll just have to play it day by day and week by week as to see what we get to. But my tipping point was always the 17,000. But most of all, Martin, I think what I'm also trying to get across is that tenants can request for these things. They've got the right to request. It's a reasonable request. And looking at the end of the day, as a tenant, look, you only need to give the agents 2 weeks access whilst you're occupying the property if you're going to vacate anyway. So play it safe and refuse access, I would say, on that scenario. I know it's again, I'm going to get smashed by the industry by saying that, but I'm all for looking after tenants, and that 2 week window or 2 open window of opportunity. That's just the price that the industry and investors have to pay in order to protect a human life and occupants. Often the case that it's young families. And so forth. So look, again, I hope people can use those simple tips and keep smiling, keep laughing. Joy and laughter is good medicine for the soul, they say.
That's great advice, Edwin. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom around us at the moment, so it is good to keep a bit of perspective. And as I've been saying to some people, don't panic, right? Because panic doesn't actually help. And I think there's a lot of very negative stuff around in social media and everywhere else. But, it is important to keep a sense of proportion, take sensible precautions as well. But as you say, keep laughing.
All the best, Martin, and stay safe.
Thank you, Edwin. I appreciate your time today, and we'll catch up again down the track, eh? So there you have it. Some very sensible suggestions from Edwin as to what to do if, in fact, you do decide to open your house in the current environment. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.